Hey everyone, let's get right into it. Before we dive into accessing and changing attributes in the DOM, I actually want to enthusiastically correct a tiny mistake I made in a previous session. I mentioned earlier that inner HTML and text content were methods. Well, scratch that. They are in fact properties, not methods. This is actually a fantastic teaching moment though, because understanding this exact distinction unlocks how JavaScript fundamentally interacts with the DOM. Okay, let's dive into this. Think of today's explainer as a masterclass in taking total control over a web page's metadata. We'll be covering 1. Properties versus methods, 2. Reading attribute values, 3. Updating and creating attributes, 4. The property alternative, and 5. Crucial behavioral nuances. Section 1. Properties versus methods, the core distinction. The absolutely crucial point here is how you actually distinguish between these two in your code. Notice on the left side, you can instantly tell you're dealing with a property because we use the assignment operator, that equal sign, to update its value. It's just a direct assignment of data. On the right side, however, if it's a method, you are almost always going to see those parentheses at the very end. Think of it like this. Methods are actions you actively call, while properties are just values you set or read. That right there is your visual cheat sheet. Section 2. Reading attribute values. Selecting and inspecting. Working with the DOM is always a strict two-step process. Literally always. Step 1. You have to actually go into the document and grab the specific target element you want to work with. Imagine you've got an anchor tag in your HTML with an ID of test. You'd use a document selector to grab that and store the reference in a variable. Then comes step 2, using a method or a property to actually read or change its attribute values. You cannot skip step 1. So, once we've successfully grabbed our element and saved it to a variable, let's just call it link for now, we can use our very first tool, the getAttribute method. Notice I said method, so we are absolutely using those parentheses. This method takes exactly one parameter, which is the name of the attribute you want to inspect. When you pass that name in, JavaScript reads the document and returns the exact string value written directly inside your HTML source code. And this brilliantly illustrates the method in action. We take our link variable, dot onto it, and call getAttribute, passing in class. JavaScript immediately zips into the DOM, finds that specific element, sees that the class is set to Ninja, and returns that exact text right back to us. It just reads the value and passes it back. Honestly, it's simple, it's elegant, and it works for pretty much any attribute on any element. Section 3. Updating and creating attributes. Dynamic manipulation. Now, to change the DOM dynamically and inject new values onto the page on the fly, we use the setAttribute method. This is going to be your primary workhorse for updating elements. But pay close attention here. Unlike getAttribute, setAttribute specifically requires two distinct parameters to function. The first parameter is the attribute name you're targeting, and the second parameter is the brand new value you want to assign to it. And what's super cool is that it's not just for updating existing attributes, it can dynamically create brand new ones right out of thin air. Notice in the first row how these two parameters work together to update an existing class. We call setAttribute, pass in class as the attribute name, and pi as the new value. Boom. Instantly, our elements class changes from Ninja to pi in the live DOM. But look at row 2. This is wild. We pass in alt as the attribute name and hello as the value. Even if our anchor tag literally never had an alt attribute written in the original HTML, JavaScript simply injects it dynamically. The HTML structure just updates in real time. Section 4, the property alternative, using built-in tools. On the left side, you're seeing the method approach we just mastered, link.setAttribute class ninja. Very straightforward. But on the right side, look at this alternative, link.className equals ninja. Because class name is actually a built-in property, we get to use the assignment operator, that trusty equal sign, to update it. This single line of code achieves the exact same result as the method on the left, but it uses a completely different syntax. Section 5. Crucial behavioral nuances, pro tips, and traps. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the surprisingly different outputs you get for seemingly the exact same request. On the left, when we use the method getAttribute for href, it returns exactly what is written in the raw HTML text. If the HTML just says /about or subjects, that exact relative path is returned. But look at the right side. When you call the .href property, JavaScript recognizes, hey, this is a link, so it returns the fully qualified URL, appending your entire domain name right onto the front of it. It is the exact same attribute, but you get two completely different answers depending on the tool you decided to use. To summarize these professional nuances, you really have to remember that properties act as stored, contextual information that the browser inherently understands, and that is exactly why their behavior diverges from the literal string reading of a method. Another perfect example of this is the .style property. If you try to read an element's inline CSS using the .style property, you do not get a simple string of text back. No way. Instead, JavaScript hands you this massive, complex object containing every single possible style property available. Which brings us to a rather fascinating puzzle to close out this explainer. If the .style property returns a massive, complex object instead of just a simple string, how exactly do we use it to manipulate our CSS dynamically? It's a great question, right? And it's a puzzle we are absolutely going to solve in our next deep dive into CSS manipulation. Until then, you now have the foundational tools to take full control over your web page's metadata using attributes, methods, and properties. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and keep exploring.